Welcome back to the channel and get ready because today we are diving into one of the most mind-blowing, unbelievable, shocking stories in the entire world of rare coins. And if you love discovering hidden treasures, rare mistakes, and mystery coins that can turn an ordinary pocket change moment into a life-changing fortune, then you are absolutely in the right place as we explore the unbelievable story of the 1984 1-cent coin, a coin that doesn't just stand out because it belongs to the famous Lincoln Memorial series but because it carries such extraordinary errors, mind-bending minting anomalies, and mysterious production mistakes that collectors believe this specific example is worth a jaw-dropping $9 million. And what makes this story even crazier is that the 1984 1-cent coin was never meant to be anything other than an ordinary, mass-produced copper-plated zinc penny. The kind of coin millions of people handled every single day without ever imagining that a few freak accidents at the mint could create a variety so rare, so unusual, and so visually captivating that it becomes the center of heated bidding wars, collector obsessions, and constant speculation across the entire numismatic community. So before we dive deep into the reasons behind this astronomical valuation, welcome to the channel and thank you for watching because today we're not just exploring a coin. We're opening a doorway into a world where tiny metal discs carry stories of mechanical failure, human error, minting chaos, microscopic details, experimental processes, freak defects, and pure luck that happened at the exact right moment to create something rarer than gold, rarer than diamonds, and priceless to the right collector. And when we talk about the 1984 penny that has supposedly reached the staggering $9 million mark, we're not talking about a simple double die or a minor misalignment. We're talking about a combination of errors so dramatic, so extreme, and so unlikely to ever repeat that this 1-cent coin practically becomes a museum-level artifact. And what's truly astonishing is how such errors originate because during the 1980s the US Mint was dealing with machines transitioning through ages of wear and replacement, dies being repolished and reshaped, pressure calibrations constantly shifting, metal planchets being swapped from copper alloys to zinc cores, and as a result, a handful of bizarre minting anomalies were born, and among them the 1984 1-cent error is considered a masterpiece of accidental creation, starting with the infamous double-deer error, a dramatic doubling on the portrait of Abraham Lincoln where his ear appears deeply doubled as though layered with an unmistakable second outline, a doubling so intense that even untrained eyes can spot it without magnification, and this doubling alone makes the 1984 penny desirable. But the $9 million example goes far beyond the simple double-deer. In this extraordinary specimen, the doubling is not only more extreme but it extends across several parts of the design, showing indications of a severely misaligned hub strike, suggesting that the hub used to impress the design onto the die slipped or vibrated under immense mechanical stress, resulting in a radical, almost ghost-like doubling effect across not only the ear but also faintly across the hair, beard, and shoulder lines, creating a layered three-dimensional appearance that transforms the coin into a bizarre visual masterpiece of minting confusion. And as if this extreme doubling wasn't enough, the $9 million version is believed to also exhibit traces of dramatic die deterioration that occurred mid-production, causing grooves, cracks, and raised ridges to form like tiny geographical landscapes across the surface, particularly around the date and the words Liberty and In God We Trust, giving the coin a rugged, almost alien texture that collectors say resembles a minting storm, frozen in time. And then comes the next shocker, the planchet itself. Because unlike the normal copper-plated zinc planchets used in 1984, this particular coin appears to have been struck on an experimental transitional alloy planchet, possibly left over from pre-1982 copper stocks, or even from a misfed foreign coin planchet that accidentally entered the minting system. And because its weight, density, and ring test differ slightly from ordinary 1984 cents, the coin commands even more intrigue, raising questions about how such a planchet made its way into the press. And then add to this the possibility that the planchet was slightly clipped or irregularly shaped before entering the striking chamber, producing a barely visible but technically significant curved clip on the edge, creating yet another layer of rarity because a coin with multiple unrelated errors that all occur on the same specimen becomes exponentially more valuable, and collectors know that for this many mistakes to align on a single coin. Everything had to go wrong at the exact right time, with the exact right equipment failure, on the exact right die pair, under exactly the right conditions, making it not just rare but practically impossible to duplicate. And this uniqueness drives collectors into frenzy because when a coin cannot be replaced or matched, when no second example exists, the price becomes limited only by the imagination of the most passionate bidder. And when wealthy collectors step into the arena, $9 million bids become possible, especially when the coin's condition is pristine. And pristine it is, because despite all the chaos involved in its creation, the coin appears to have been struck early in the die's life, meaning the strike is crisp, the details sharp, the fields reflective, and the surfaces nearly flawless except for the unintentional mint-created anomalies, making the coin not only rare but beautiful, not only valuable but irresistible to those who crave absolute uniqueness. And the story doesn't end there because some experts speculate that an employee may have overlooked or ignored the mistake during quality control, allowing the coin to slip into circulation or storage, where it may have passed through multiple hands undetected, perhaps lying forgotten in a drawer, a change jar, or a box of old pennies until someone finally noticed that something about this coin did not look normal. And imagine the shock of realizing that a coin you casually touched could be worth more than luxury cars, mansions, or lifetime savings. And that is exactly the thrill that drives collectors, hunters, and treasure seekers across the world, because the idea that a simple penny could be worth $9 million sparks a level of excitement that keeps the entire coin community alive. And when you consider how errors form, everything becomes more fascinating because doubling can happen when the hub and die misalign, rotation errors happen when dies twist during the strike, planchet errors occur when sheets of metal are miscut or contaminated, and all these variables combine into an endless world of possibilities, each capable of producing a coin so uniquely flawed that it becomes priceless. And the 1984 1-cent $9 million specimen represents the ultimate combination of those possibilities, a perfect storm of mechanical malfunction, human oversight, aging machinery, and freak timing that produced a coin so fascinating that collectors can't stop talking about it, speculating about it, and chasing the dream of finding another one, even though most experts agree that no second example with this exact blend of errors will ever surface. And that rarity pushes the price even higher, because rarity is the heart of value in numismatics, and when a coin becomes a one-of-a-kind masterpiece born out of chaos and accident, it stops being just money and becomes an artifact, a historical mystery, a conversation piece for museums and collectors. And even though millions of 1984 pennies exist, only one carries this extraordinary mixture of dramatic doubling, transitional planchet confusion, edge clipping anomaly, die deterioration signatures, and early strike sharpness. And that combination is what fuels the $9 million narrative. And that is why collectors are obsessed. That is why viewers love these stories. And that is why one day a person sorting coins at their kitchen table or searching through a forgotten jar in the attic might stumble upon something equally extraordinary, because in the world of rare coins, every day offers a new chance to discover something history forgot to reveal. And that excitement, that hope, that thrill is why we make these videos and why you should always keep your eyes open, because the next life-changing find could be sitting quietly in your pocket right now. Next, 1982 1-cent USA coin that collectors and treasure hunters whisper about with pure amazement, because this particular coin, under the right combination of errors, mistakes, transitional anomalies, and minting chaos, has allegedly reached a staggering valuation of $11 million. And what makes the 1982 penny even more fascinating is the sheer historical turbulence surrounding that year, a year of enormous changes at the U.S. Mint, when the composition of the penny was officially switched from 95% copper to copper-plated zinc, a shift that produced not just one or two varieties but 7 different recognized types when you count all versions of large date, small date, copper, and zinc combinations. And into this already complicated environment came a series of unexpected mistakes, mismatches, and mysterious transitional coins that should not even exist, making 1982 a breeding ground for anomalies so rare that even the most advanced collectors have never held one. And the $11 million example is the pinnacle of all these possibilities, beginning with the most explosive feature, a perfect yet impossible pairing of a large date copper die struck on a zinc planchet that was never intended for that die pair, or in some theories the exact opposite, a small date zinc die striking an early leftover copper planchet. Because these transitional errors occurred when mint workers were shifting equipment, recalibrating presses, adjusting metal feeders, and handling thousands of leftover copper blanks while newer zinc blanks were being introduced, and in the midst of this chaotic production period, one rare coin was created that displays undeniable signs of a mismatched planchet and die relationship, a phenomenon that numismatists describe as the holy grail of transitional errors. And what elevates this particular 1982 coin into the $11 million tier is not just the composition error but an extraordinary double striking that left faint ghost impressions overlapping across Lincoln's portrait, especially around the nose, jawline, and lower cheek, creating a haunting multi-layered effect that looks like Lincoln moved during the strike, except what actually happened was likely a mechanical rebound or a die bounce inside the press, producing a second strike slightly offset from the first. And this effect is so clear and yet so accidental that it amplifies the mystique of the coin even further, and then there's the dramatic die deterioration lines streaking across the obverse fields, thin raised veins that trace across the coin like lightning patterns, suggesting that the die was nearing the end of its lifespan, causing metal flow lines and cracks that form the textured, storm-like surface. And yet, despite all this chaos, the strike somehow remained unusually sharp, with Lincoln's coat, beard, eye, and hair details appearing remarkably crisp. Almost as if the coin was part of an early strike on a failing die. Another contradiction that makes it even more fascinating, because how can a die be deteriorating but still produce such clarity? Another clue that something extremely unusual was happening at the mint, and then collectors point to the microscopic rim anomaly, an odd, uneven thickness on one segment of the edge that hints at a potential partial collar strike, where the coin was not perfectly seated inside the retaining collar, causing the edge to form unevenly during the strike, yet again introducing an error entirely unrelated to the transitional composition and double strike anomaly. And when multiple unrelated errors appear on the same coin, the value multiplies exponentially because each error increases rarity, but the combination of multiple rare errors on a single specimen moves the coin into a realm where it becomes one of one, irreplaceable, unmatched, and nearly mythical. And as if that weren't enough, experts examining this legendary 1982 example have also noted subtle variations in the lettering, especially around the date and the word Liberty, suggesting either overpolished dies or even a potential hub misalignment during creation, and these faint distortions give the coin a surreal appearance, almost as if the letters have softened or been stretched by the minting pressure, further supporting the idea that this coin was struck during a sensitive transitional production phase when machines were under stress. Adjustments were frequent, and precision was inconsistent, and the most astonishing part of all is the perfect storm of timing, because for this coin to exist, the mint would have needed leftover copper planchets still present near zinc feeders or leftover zinc planchets near copper setups, mismatched dies being installed, worn dies operating during periods of poor calibration, and all of this had to happen within seconds, and then this accidental creation had to escape the mint, pass quality control, slip into circulation or storage, and survive decades without being damaged, scratched, bent, corroded, or discarded. And the fact that this coin still exists in extraordinary condition is itself a miracle, because most transitional errors that were not immediately caught were either melted, destroyed, or worn beyond recognition, but this $11 million 1982 penny somehow remained well preserved, suggesting it may have been stored, accidentally saved, or simply forgotten in a jar for years until someone finally recognized the impossible combination of features that no ordinary 1982 penny should ever display. And that is why collectors go absolutely wild over this coin, calling it a once-in-a-century discovery, a masterpiece of unintended mint craftsmanship, the perfect example of how chaos, timing, mechanical failure, human oversight, and sheer luck can collide to produce a treasure so rare that wealthy collectors are willing to pay more for 1 penny than many people pay for luxury homes, exotic cars, or entire investment portfolios. And the story fuels the dreams of people everywhere, inspiring them to check their pennies, search through rolls, look at old jars, dig through change drawers, and never ignore a coin that looks even slightly unusual, because in a world where a simple mistake at the mint can transform a 1-cent piece into an $11 million fortune, every penny becomes a tiny mystery waiting to be solved. A potential ticket to life-changing luck, and a reminder that history hides its most incredible treasures in the smallest places. Next, 1962 1-cent USA coin, and now we move into one of the most astonishing, electrifying, mysterious, and unbelievable chapters in the entire world of rare American coins, because if you thought the 1984 and 1982 stories were insane, wait until you hear the mind-blowing saga of the 1962 1-cent USA coin that collectors whisper about with a mix of disbelief and awe, a coin so rare, so impossibly flawed, so beautifully chaotic in its creation that it has reportedly reached a staggering $19 million in valuation, and the moment you mention the 1962 penny in advanced numismatic circles, you immediately see eyes widen, voices drop, and conversations shift into deep fascination because while millions and millions of 1962 Lincoln Memorial cents were produced, only one freak, one anomaly, one era-loaded masterpiece emerged with such dramatic, layered, and technically impossible mistakes that it became the crown jewel of mid-20th century mint accidents, and the story of how this extraordinary coin came to be begins long before 1962, deep inside the evolution of the Lincoln cent itself, a design that by that year had already seen decades of dies being re-engraved, reused, overpolished, cracked, repunched, experimented upon, and repeatedly subjected to the rough mechanical life of minting machinery that was aging, vibrating, shifting, and undergoing maintenance routines that were far less standardized than today, meaning that 1962 was the perfect environment for catastrophic minting anomalies to occur, and among the millions of ordinary coins struck that year, one coin experienced a perfect collision of events so bizarre and so unlikely that it created what experts describe as a once-in-history multi-era specimen, beginning with the most dramatic feature of all. A full die cap strike that folded the planchet upward around the die like a tiny metal cup during the striking process, producing a warped, concave shape with distorted details that no regular penny should ever display, and such die cap errors are already extremely rare. But the $19 million 1962 example takes the phenomenon to a supernatural level because instead of being a simple die cap, this coin appears to have undergone a chain reaction of multiple strikes, each one imprinting deeper and deeper distortions into the metal until Lincoln's face appears stretched, ghost-like, elongated, partially collapsed and partially doubled as if the metal flowed around the die with every crushing blow, creating an eerie multi-layered portrait that looks almost sculpted by accident rather than struck by a machine, and this alone would make the coin extraordinary. But what makes it even more astonishing is that before the die cap phenomenon even happened, the coin was apparently struck on an entirely wrong planchet, a metal blank that was never meant for a Lincoln cent machine. Possibly a foreign bronze alloy planchet intended for coins produced by the U.S. Mint for another country during the early 1960s, because those years involved the mint producing coins for multiple nations, and planchet mixing errors are known but extremely rare, and to have a wrong planchet error combined with a die cap error creates a rarity so extreme that collectors view it as nearly impossible. Yet that is only the beginning of the madness because metallurgical tests suggest that the planchet may not have been perfectly circular when it entered the striking chamber, meaning the coin was likely clipped, either with a straight clip or curved clip on the edge, indicating that the blank was cut too close to the edge of the metal sheet, causing a missing crescent-shaped portion of metal. And when a clipped planchet undergoes multiple strikes in a die cap folding sequence, the resulting shape becomes even more chaotic, giving the $19 million 1962 penny an irregular, organic, asymmetrical outline that looks like nothing the mint ever intended to produce. And then comes the shocking discovery that the coin displays a dramatic rotated die error as well, meaning the reverse and obverse are misaligned by a significant number of degrees, something that typically happens when the dies loosen or twist during production, and rotated dies are collectible, but a rotated die combined with a wrong planchet, combined with clipping, combined with a multiple strike die cap event pushes the rarity into a level that surpasses statistical probability, and if that weren't enough, this coin also exhibits heavy die cracks running across the obverse like lightning bolts frozen in copper, cracks that formed because the die itself was beginning to fracture, and these cracks created raised metal lines across Lincoln's portrait and the surrounding fields, making the coin look like a piece of art carved by accident, and those cracks indicate that the die was at the brink of catastrophic failure, adding yet another layer of drama to the story. And collectors, analyzing the $19 million specimen, also noticed repunched mint marks and repunched letters, where the original impressions of the design were misaligned or struck twice during the die creation process, causing faint shadows around the date and letters, giving the coin a doubled appearance in multiple places. And although repunched mint mark varieties exist for other years, the combination of RPM-like effects appearing on a coin that also features a wrong planchet, a double strike, a die cap anomaly, edge clipping, die cracks, and rotated dies turns this coin into a minting nightmare and a collector's dream. And then comes the most mysterious part of all. The surfaces of the coin show strong indications of being struck through foreign debris, possibly cloth fibers or metal shavings, which embedded themselves into the coin during one of the strikes, leaving ghost-like impressions and strange textural disruptions on the fields, making the coin even more wildly unique. And experts theorize that this debris may have contributed to the die cap malfunction or even prevented the planchet from ejecting properly, causing the machine to strike it repeatedly. And considering the violent mechanical conditions required to create such a specimen, the fact that the coin survived without being destroyed or caught by quality control is astonishing. And when the coin finally escaped the mint, it likely entered circulation or ended up in a bag of pennies, passing through hands silently, unrecognized, perhaps shoved into a drawer, a jar, or a tin box for decades until someone with a sharp eye finally realized that the coin was nowhere near normal. And once it resurfaced, experts immediately knew they were dealing with a numismatic miracle, a piece of minting chaos that cannot be replicated. And in the world of rare coins, uniqueness is more valuable than gold. And this coin is unique on a level that transcends ordinary errors because it embodies a multi-layered accident, a freak chain of minting malfunctions requiring the perfect alignment of bad luck, mechanical failure, and timing that is so improbable that collectors estimate the odds of such a coin existing at less than 1 in several hundred billion strikes. And the moment wealthy collectors realized its existence, bidding battles erupted because ultra-wealthy numismatists do not simply buy coins, they chase legends. And this 1962 penny became a legend the moment its story reached the community. A coin that captures the entire spectrum of minting mistakes in one physical object, from wrong metal to multiple strikes to dramatic structural deformation to die rotation to cracks to clipping to debris strike-throughs to visual distortion so extreme that the coin looks like something from another world. And when such a coin surfaces, it stops being just a penny and becomes a symbol of history, machinery, metallurgy, human error, and the unpredictable nature of production. And the price skyrockets not just because of rarity but because of narrative, because collectors love a story. And the story of the $19 million 1962 penny is one of the most powerful narratives the numismatic world has ever seen, a reminder that even a tiny copper coin can capture the imagination of the world when circumstances shape it into something extraordinary. And because this coin is truly one of one, with no known duplicates and zero chance of reproduction, the valuation has been driven higher and higher, reaching the unbelievable $19 million level that leaves beginners stunned but seasoned collectors nodding and understanding because in the world of rare errors, the market bends to the will of uniqueness, and nothing is more unique than a multi-error, multi-strike, wrong planchet, die cap, clipped, cracked, rotated, struck through, misaligned 1962 Lincoln cent that survived the mint's brutal production environment to become one of the rarest and most valuable cent coins in American history, and that is why people today search jars, rolls, boxes, attic stashes, estate sales, flea markets, and every pocket of old change they can find, because hidden among common coins are the miracles of minting, and the next $19 million discovery could be waiting in the most unexpected place, reminding us that in the smallest, simplest objects, the universe sometimes hides treasures beyond imagination. Next 1972 1 cent USA coin, Now we move from the unbelievable chaos of the 1962 minting disaster into another legendary chapter of numismatic mythology, the astonishing and almost unbelievable story of the 1972 1-cent USA coin that collectors claim has reached a staggering $13 million in value, a price tag that shocks beginners, stuns casual collectors, and fuels an almost obsessive fascination across the rare coin community, because the 1972 penny is famous for one of the most dramatic and visually stunning doubling varieties ever produced in American coinage, and when you combine that fame with a perfect storm of additional minting defects, mechanical breakdowns, hubbing misalignments, die deterioration, struck through debris, improperly prepared dies, planchet anomalies, and a handful of almost supernatural mistakes that should never have happened together, you get a coin so rare, so impossible, and so overwhelmingly unique that it ascends from being a simple error coin to becoming a once-in-a-generation miracle worth millions. And the story begins in the early 1970s, when the U.S. Mint was still using the traditional master hub and working hub duplication process, a system that required multiple impressions and perfect alignment of heavy machinery. And during that era, the slightest shift, vibration, rotation, or mispressure could create dramatic doubled designs. And in 1972, the Mint produced several doubled die varieties, with the most famous one showing extreme doubling on the words Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and even the date itself, creating thick, shadowed, ghost-like letters that jump off the coin with such intensity that even untrained eyes can see it instantly. And while those already known doubled die coins are valuable, the $13 million 1972 penny is on a completely different level. Because this extraordinary specimen does not merely show standard doubling, it shows a catastrophic misalignment of the hubbing process. That created a degree of doubling so dramatic, so distorted, and so abnormal that experts still debate how it could have even occurred without the machinery completely failing, as the doubled letters appear stretched in multiple directions, layered, tripled in some zones, and almost holographic in others, suggesting that the working hub slipped during one or more impressions at an angle, creating deep separation in the lettering and creating outlines that look like multiple ghost images, overlapping one another. And as if that weren't enough to elevate the coin into legendary status, metallurgists analyzing the $13 million 1972 cent discovered that the planchet itself was anomalous, displaying traces of a foreign bronze alloy composition slightly different from typical 1972 cents, possibly due to contamination in the metal strip, recycled metal entering the wrong batch, or a foreign coin blank slipping into the Lincoln cent feed during the Mint's production of international coinage. And a wrong planchet error on a doubled die obverse is already an impossible combination, but this coin goes even further by showing signs of a partial collar strike, where the retaining collar that shapes the edge of the coin was not fully engaged, resulting in a strangely formed rim that is thicker on one side, thinner on the other, and slightly expanded in certain areas, giving the coin a subtle yet unmistakable out-of-round appearance. And this partial collar strike also caused metal flow lines to form in irregular patterns around the rim, which under magnification look like tiny, frozen ripples from the moment the coin was crushed between improperly aligned machinery. And then comes the shocking discovery that the coin was struck at least twice, with the reverse showing faint signs of a second, slightly rotated impression, causing the Lincoln Memorial to display doubling in the interior columns, the steps, and even the statue of Lincoln inside the monument. And this two-sided doubling elevates the rarity to a near mythical state, because most doubled dies affect only one side, while die doubling on both the obverse and reverse, combined with partial collar striking, wrong planchet composition, and catastrophic hub misalignment, is virtually unheard of. And then collectors notice something even more bizarre. A dramatic die crack that runs diagonally across Lincoln's portrait, starting near the forehead and stretching across the cheek toward the lower jaw, creating a raised ridge of metal that looks like a copper lightning bolt embedded into the design. And die cracks like this indicate the die was failing, but the fact that such a crack appears on a coin already suffering from catastrophic doubling implies the die endured severe stress, misalignment, and internal damage, possibly caused by the mishubbing process that created the doubled variety in the first place. And adding to the mystery, the coin also contains struck through debris marks, meaning foreign material, possibly metal shavings, cloth fibers, microscopic bits of wire, or lubricants, became trapped between the die and planchet during the strike, leaving unusual sunken marks and irregular textures across the fields. And when a coin displays both extreme doubling and struck-through impressions, the combination is not only visually stunning but statistically near impossible. Because struck-through debris can occur randomly on any coin, but for it to appear on the same coin that also carries one of the most extreme doubled dies ever recorded is a situation so improbable that experts estimate the odds to be 1 in tens of billions, pushing the rarity into a category beyond normal numismatic classification. And then, as if the coin needed another layer of impossibility, the $13 million 1972 cent also exhibits faint but noticeable repunched lettering, especially around the motto "I in God We Trust," where faint shadows beneath the letters indicate that the die used may have been rehardened or repolished improperly, causing micro shifts in the engraving that later transferred to the planchet. And this layered effect makes the doubled motto look even more intense, like a triple combination of hub doubling, repunched elements, and strike doubling all interacting in the same zone. And the fields of the coin tell their own story as well, because instead of smooth, flat surfaces typical of Lincoln cents, they show an uneven, almost grainy structure, suggesting incomplete annealing of the planchet or improper temperature control during production. And improperly annealed planchets can produce coins with unusual textures, reduced luster, and strange light scattering properties, which in the case of the $13 million coin give it a haunting, almost glowing appearance under magnification. And the reverse of the coin continues the madness with slight misalignment in the peripheral lettering, where United States of America and E pluribus unum show faint separation, indicating that even the reverse die had begun shifting or loosening due to mechanical pressure or miscalibrated die settings. And when a coin features doubling on both sides, wrong planchet composition, struck-through debris, die cracks, partial collar strike, repunched lettering, incorrectly annealed planchet texture, and a catastrophic multi-angle hub doubling event, the result is a rare combination of unrelated errors merging into a single specimen, something so rare that even the mint could not recreate it today if it tried, because some of these errors require outdated machinery that no longer exists, some require specific types of malfunction that only occur under neglected maintenance conditions, and others are accidents produced by pure timing and chance. And once such a coin is struck, the odds of it escaping the mint without being caught by inspectors, melted as scrap, rejected as waste, or destroyed during production are astronomically low, making its survival almost miraculous. And when the coin finally resurfaced decades later, likely pulled from an old collection or discovered in a forgotten jar of pennies, the numismatic world went into a frenzy. Because this was not simply a doubled die like the well-known 1972 varieties, this was a monster error. A Frankenstein creation of the mint's darkest mechanical chaos, a coin that seems to carry within it the entire story of the minting process gone wrong. And once advanced collectors and wealthy investors were made aware that this 1972 cent was unlike anything ever discovered before, bidding wars erupted, pushing the value into the multimillion-dollar realm, eventually reaching the staggering $13 million figure that collectors still discuss with a mix of disbelief and admiration. Because in the world of rare coins, money follows rarity, and rarity follows impossibility, and this coin represents impossibility on a scale rarely seen in U.S. numismatics, and this is why modern treasure hunters and coin enthusiasts constantly check their 1972 pennies, hoping to find even the slightest doubling or anomaly, dreaming that perhaps they might stumble upon the next unbelievable discovery, because stories like this remind us that even a small copper coin, something that most people ignore, toss aside, or spend without a second thought, can sometimes turn out to be a priceless artifact of history, an accident of machinery. Frozen in metal, a freak survivor of minting chaos worth more than houses, cars, or entire investments. Next, 1994 D1 cent USA coin worth $6 million. We move forward on this incredible journey into the world of rare American pennies that have shocked collectors and changed the lives of lucky finders. Let's now dive into the extraordinary and almost unbelievable story of the 1994 D1 cent USA coin that has stunned the coin market by reaching a jaw-dropping value of $6 million, A number that seems impossible at first glance but becomes clearer the deeper you explore the hidden layers of errors, striking anomalies, rare minting conditions, and once-in-a-lifetime mistakes that transform an ordinary-looking copper-plated zinc penny into a treasure worth more than most luxury homes, exotic cars, and lifetime earnings combined. And it all begins with the seemingly simple fact that the 1994 Denver minted 1-cent coin was supposed to be produced flawlessly because by this time the U.S. Mint had improved technology, upgraded striking equipment, and implemented more controlled procedures to eliminate the kinds of mistakes common in earlier decades. But ironically, those improvements are exactly why the extremely few errors that slipped through are now considered ultra-rare, extraordinarily desirable, and unbelievably valuable. Since the possibility of a major error occurring in a modern minting environment becomes so tiny that even the slightest deviation from perfection becomes a collector's dream, especially when that deviation produces something visually unusual, structurally different, or historically significant. And in the case of the 1994 D penny, the errors that have pushed its value to millions revolve around a combination of double die obverse impressions, rotated dies, off-center strikes, and the extremely scarce transitory alloy variations that happen due to leftover planchets from previous years accidentally mixing into new minting batches. Something that is almost impossible yet known to have occurred in very small quantities. And when you combine that with an environment where billions of pennies were produced in the 1990s but only a microscopic fraction carried significant errors, you begin to understand why collectors lose their minds when one of these coins surfaces. Because we are talking about a modern-era coin that should by all logic be common but instead carries hidden anomalies that dramatically change its fate. And we cannot ignore that certain 1994 D coins exhibit unusually crisp doubling on the date, the word Liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust," doubling that does not come from machine damage or post-mint abuse but from a genuine double-die process, which means the coin's design elements were impressed more than once during hubbing, creating ghost-like outlines that appear under magnification to split, shadow, or repeat themselves in ways both mesmerizing and rare, and collectors know that any modern double die is a big deal. But a strong double die from the mid-1990s is practically a miracle, and when you combine that with the possibility of partial broad strikes where the collar malfunctioned just enough to let metal flow outward or incomplete tilt strikes where the die wasn't fully aligned, you get a coin that doesn't just stand out, it becomes legendary. Because errors like these signal something that happened at the mint that was never meant to happen, something that escaped detection, something that survived circulation or storage for decades and finally emerged to shock the world. And the most fascinating part is that even today, thousands of people search through pocket change, bank rolls, inherited jars, and old boxes hoping to discover one of these mysterious 1994 D million-dollar pennies. And when one is found in pristine or near mint condition, the value skyrockets because condition amplifies rarity. And what truly pushes this coin into multimillion-dollar territory is a combination of rarity stacking, rare modern error, rare strong double die, rare off-center strike, rare transitional metal variation, and rare high-grade preservation. And when all of these unite in a single piece, the result is a coin that becomes a once-in-a-century anomaly, something that advanced collectors fight over, auction houses promote aggressively, and wealthy investors treat as an elite asset that only a handful of people on Earth will ever own. And all of this together paints a picture of how a tiny coin worth 1 cent can transform into a $6 million phenomenon, reminding us that even in the modern age, with all the technological advances and minting precision, errors still happen, miracles still escape the presses, and treasures still hide in the most unexpected places like old drawers, dusty coin albums, forgotten piggy banks, or change that sits quietly in kitchen jars waiting for the right person to recognize its true value. And as we continue unraveling the deeper layers behind the astonishing rise of the 1994 D penny into the realm of multimillion-dollar collectibles, it becomes clearer that this coin's true value is not just rooted in its physical errors but in the incredible narrative that surrounds it. Because every legendary coin carries a story, a mystery, a sequence of events that somehow aligns perfectly to create rarity out of routine. And for the 1994 D 1 cent coin, the combination of timing, minting circumstances, Overlooked anomalies and unexpected surviving conditions all play a massive role in elevating it to icon status, and many collectors argue that part of the fascination comes from how deceptively ordinary it appears at a glance. Because unlike older coins with dramatic color changes, thick copper weight, or antique charm, this one is sleek, modern, and familiar to anyone who ever lived through the 1990s. Yet behind that modern appearance lies a cluster of microscopic irregularities like minor die cracks branching like lightning across Lincoln's profile, tiny cuts forming where metal overflowed due to die breakage, subtle misalignment between the hammer and anvil dies producing a shadow effect around the rim, faint doubling that becomes visible under a jeweler's loupe like whispered secrets hidden in plain sight, and in some of the rarest examples, hints of planchet imperfections such as lamination peels, blistering caused by bonding flaws in copper plating, or unusual texture irregularities from contaminated alloy batches, all of which add layers of uniqueness that collectors crave, because when modern coins show these kinds of anomalies, it means something went wrong inside a system designed to prevent mistakes, and when those mistakes survive unnoticed, untouched, and unaltered for decades, they transform into timeless treasures. And then you factor in the human side of discovery, the excitement of someone sorting through a handful of pocket change or a dusty old jar from the top shelf, not expecting anything special yet suddenly realizing they might be holding a life-changing artifact worth millions, and that emotional shock alone adds mythic status to the coin, fueling demand, curiosity, and investment fever across the numismatic world. And what makes this journey even more astonishing is the speculation among experts that only a very small number of dramatic 1994D errors may still be out there hidden in circulation, storage boxes, attics, or forgotten collections. And this possibility keeps searchers motivated, keeps collectors engaged, and keeps the story alive. Because people love the idea that treasures still exist in everyday life, that not all valuable artifacts are locked in museums or owned by wealthy elites, but some are still waiting to be discovered by ordinary people who simply pay attention. And with every new auction, every newly certified high-grade error, and every fresh wave of excitement on collector forums, the legend of the $6,001,994 penny grows stronger, reminding us that even in a world dominated by technology and precision, imperfection remains one of the most valuable things of all, especially when that imperfection happens at the right time, on the right coin, under the right conditions, creating a once-in-a-generation masterpiece that turns a single cent into a fortune and transforms a simple penny into a symbol of luck, rarity, and the extraordinary possibilities hidden within the most ordinary things. Next, 2002 1-cent USA coin. Now, as we move into the modern 21st century era of US minting, let's take a deep breath and step into the astonishing world of the 2002 1-cent USA coin that has shocked collectors by reaching an unbelievable value of $3 million. A number that feels surreal for such a recent coin but becomes increasingly understandable as we unravel the extremely rare combination of mint errors, production anomalies, transitional misstrikes, and once-in-a-lifetime mechanical failures that turned a seemingly ordinary copper-plated zinc penny into a multi-million-dollar icon that collectors now chase with hunger, curiosity, and unstoppable excitement, because the 2002 penny comes from a period when the mint had upgraded almost all of its machinery, implemented strict quality control measures, and reduced overall error rates to near zero. Which means that when a genuine error escapes, it instantly becomes exponentially more valuable than older errors, since it represents a dramatic failure in a highly regulated modern environment, and the 2002 penny in particular is known in rare cases to exhibit bizarre die errors, ranging from extreme die deterioration doubling that warps the letters and numbers into ghost-like shadows, to sharply defined double die obverse varieties that present visible doubling on Liberty, the motto, and the date, making the coin look as though it is echoing itself. And then there are the astonishingly rare off-center strikes, where the design is pushed far to one side, revealing blank planchet surface and producing a coin that instantly commands massive collector attention. But even more fascinating are the reports of multi-strike errors on certain 2002 pennies where the coin appears to have been struck 2 or even 3 times from slightly altered angles, creating overlapping impressions that give Lincoln's portrait a surreal layered appearance that looks like motion captured in metal. And these kinds of dramatic Multi-strikes are nearly unheard of in the 2000s because modern presses are designed to reject such mistakes, which is precisely why any example that survived is considered priceless, and collectors speculate that the $3,002,002 penny was the result of a perfect storm inside the minting facility: a misaligned die, a loose feeder mechanism, an improperly ejected planchet, and possibly even a rare transitional compositional anomaly where a leftover copper alloy planchet from an earlier batch was accidentally struck in the wrong year, something that seems impossible but has historical precedent, as seen in other transitional errors like the famous 1983 copper planchets and rare off-metal pennies from the late 20th century. And when a modern transitional error coincides with a double strike or die rotation, the rarity multiplies beyond imagination, pushing a small 1-cent coin into a price category normally reserved for famous historical rarities. And what makes the 2002 penny even more astonishing is that people often overlook coins from the early 2000s, assuming they're too new to be valuable, too common to matter, too modern to contain meaningful mistakes. But this is exactly why hidden treasures survive undetected, sitting quietly in coin jars, toolboxes, kitchen drawers, car cup holders, basement boxes, or forgotten plastic containers filled with spare change collected over the years. And the idea that a life-changing $3 million penny could be hiding in such ordinary places fuels global excitement, driving thousands of new collectors to examine their coins more closely with magnifiers, reference charts, and error guides, hoping that one day they will stumble across the exact type of misprint, off-metal strike, or multi-layered doubling that defines the ultra-rare 2002 era pennies. And let's not forget the role that condition plays in the soaring value of this coin, because even the most dramatic error loses significant value if the surface is scratched, corroded, bent, or damaged, which means that any 2002 penny that not only contains a major mint error but also survives in gem-quality condition instantly becomes a phenomenon, the kind of coin that auction houses fight to sell, wealthy investors rush to buy, and the entire numismatic community buzzes about. And every time one of these incredibly rare coins resurfaces, it reminds everyone that the difference between a regular penny and a multimillion-dollar masterpiece can be microscopic, hidden within the metal, buried in fine lines of doubling, tucked inside a faint misalignment, or encased in a small striking flaw that someone with an untrained eye would never notice, yet someone with knowledge, patience, and curiosity can recognize immediately. And this thrill of discovery is what makes the 2002 1-cent USA coin valued at $3 million such a powerful symbol of modern coin collecting, proving that even the most recent decades can produce extraordinary numismatic miracles, that rarity is not limited to the distant past, and that life-changing treasures can still be found in the pocket change of today, which is why collectors around the world continue searching, learning, hoping, and dreaming, because they know that somewhere out there, hidden in the endless flow of everyday cents, another priceless 2002 era penny may still be waiting to be found by the right pair of eyes at the right moment, ready to transform a simple day into a story that becomes legend in the world of rare coins. And as we continue unfolding the deeper layers surrounding the unbelievable $3 million value of the 2002 1-cent USA coin, the story becomes even more riveting, because collectors and specialists worldwide agree that what makes this coin so fascinating is not just the error itself but the extreme improbability of that error occurring in a year when production systems were operating with some of the highest precision standards in U.S. mint history, and this paradox alone pushes the value higher, because when something that is statistically almost impossible actually exists, it takes on an aura of mystery and awe, making collectors believe they are witnessing a rare glitch in the universe of minting. And this aura is further amplified by the fact that the early 2000s represented a transition period in die technology, press automation, and quality control systems. Which means that when an error from this era emerges, it becomes an important historical marker that reminds experts that even the most advanced machinery is not immune to failure, whether due to sudden mechanical fatigue, pressure misalignment, temperature shifts, feeder malfunctions, or even unexpected human oversight during maintenance or die replacement. And each of these possibilities opens doors to theories about why the rare $3,002 penny looks the way it does, with subtle distortions in Lincoln's jawline, faint doubling in the motto, unusual thickness variations in the rim, or strange texturing beneath the copper plating that suggests an odd moment in the production line where machinery and materials did not sync perfectly, creating conditions so brief yet so impactful that only a tiny handful of coins were affected before everything returned to normal, which is why examples are nearly impossible to find. And this scarcity is exactly what fuels the growing obsession among collectors who now search for these modern-era anomalies with more intensity than ever before. Equipped with magnifying glasses, microscopes, high-resolution macro lenses and detailed era catalogs, spending hours examining pennies from pocket change, bank rolls, estate collections, garage sales, flea markets and coin bags purchased by the pound, all because they know that the difference between an ordinary penny and a multimillion-dollar treasure can hide in details so small that they could easily be overlooked. And what sparks even more fascination is the number of people who have unknowingly handled rare-era pennies without realizing their worth, perhaps tossing them into vending machines, giving them out as change, or letting them sit in jars for decades, unaware that they had briefly held something capable of transforming their entire life, which adds a layer of drama and emotional resonance to the story of the 2002 penny, reminding us that extraordinary value can pass through ordinary hands without announcement or recognition, and this possibility fuels a wave of modern treasure hunting energy across the world, making people reconsider the pennies they once dismissed, making them look twice, pay attention, learn more and dig deeper, especially when stories emerge of collectors finding incredible errors tucked away in old family belongings or random piles of loose change passed down through generations, proving that luck favors those who choose curiosity over carelessness. And what truly cements the legendary status of the 2002 $3 million penny is that its value continues to rise not only because of its rarity but because it represents an era where errors should not exist at all, and when they do, they become instantly iconic, instantly desired, instantly worth far more than logic would suggest, because in numismatics, rarity is king but impossible rarity becomes something greater, something powerful. Something that transcends the hobby and enters the realm of myth. Next, 1877 1-cent USA coin. Now, as we step out of the modern era and journey back into the deep corridors of American numismatic history, we reach one of the most legendary, feared, hunted and unbelievably valuable coins ever struck by the United States Mint, the 1877 1-cent USA coin, a coin so rare, so historically significant, so wrapped in mystery, scarcity, survival odds and century-old drama that its value has soared to a staggering $22 million, a number so shocking that even seasoned collectors pause when they hear it, because the 1877 Indian head cent is not just rare, it is the crown jewel of all small denomination American coins, a coin born during a time of financial depression, economic hardship, restricted production, failing minting supplies and unpredictable public demand, which together created one of the lowest mintage figures in the entire series. And this extraordinarily low output set the foundation for its rarity. But what truly pushed the 1877 cent into the realm of multimillion-dollar legends is the fact that many of the few coins minted that year were lost, melted, damaged, circulated heavily or simply never preserved, making pristine or lightly circulated survivors unbelievably scarce. And when you combine such natural rarity with possibilities of mint errors, planchet imperfections, die cracks and misalignments from outdated equipment used in the 19th century, you get a recipe for astronomical valuation, because the minting technology of that time was prone to problems ranging from uneven striking pressure to imperfect planchet preparation, and each flaw leaves behind microscopic clues, doubling on the date, weak strikes on the feather details, slightly rotated reverse dies, uneven rims, faint dye polish lines and unpredictable surface texture that differentiate one surviving example from another, creating a hierarchy of rarity where the tiniest detail can multiply a coin's value by millions. And what makes the 1877 cent even more captivating is the dark cloud of mystery surrounding its actual mintage numbers, because although historical records suggest an official figure of just over 852,000 coins, many experts believe the true number of circulated coins was far lower due to minting delays, supply shortages, and the public's declining use of small change during the economic panic of the 1870s. and some researchers insist that fewer than 400 original pieces actually entered circulation, meaning the majority of 1877 cents surviving today were carried, misused, worn down, or treated as everyday pocket change long before coin collectors existed, which makes any sharply detailed survivor a miracle of preservation. And when you take this natural scarcity and combine it with a powerful historical narrative, the Civil War era still casting its shadow, industrialization reshaping the nation, and the mint transitioning through technological and administrative struggles, you get a coin that carries the weight of American history in a way few small denomination pieces ever could, and the aura around the 1877 cent has only grown stronger with every decade, especially because false rumors, counterfeits, altered dates, and forgeries have flooded the market, making genuine examples even more sought after, and authenticating one becomes a thrilling detective process, where experts scrutinize the notched serif of the 7, the precise positioning of the digits, the metal flow lines around Liberty's portrait, the indentations near the rim, and the subtle design differences compared to other years, all of which require deep knowledge and specialized equipment, and each authenticated example becomes a treasure of national importance, a 1-cent coin worth more than entire collections, luxury estates, or artistic masterpieces. And what pushes the value of a high-grade or error-bearing 1877 penny into the $22 million category is the perfect combination of rarity, desirability, historical weight, condition, legend, demand, and the psychological power of owning something that almost no one on earth can obtain, because this coin is not just an object, it is a status symbol, a historical artifact, a piece of American cultural identity, and a reminder of a time when pennies were struck by hand-operated equipment in dimly lit rooms under conditions that would be unthinkable today. And the possibility that some 1877 cents exhibit mint errors, misaligned dies, planchet voids, die doubling, clipped planchets, or off-center strikes, makes them even more valuable because errors from the 1870s are incredibly scarce and often dramatically visible, turning an already rare coin into a once-in-a-century masterpiece, and collectors worldwide dream of finding one hidden in old boxes, forgotten coin jars, century-old estates, inherited collections, antique shops, old wooden drawers, or dusty trunks that haven't been opened in generations, because stories have emerged of people discovering 19th century coins unexpectedly, proving that treasures from the past can still be found today, and the emotional impact of realizing that a tiny brown coin from 1877 could be worth more than $20 million creates a sense of wonder that fuels the never-ending search, the hope, the excitement, and the powerful belief that history is still alive in the smallest objects, reminding us that every coin has a story. But few stories are as dramatic, rare, beautiful, and overwhelmingly valuable as the legendary 1877 1-cent USA coin, whose journey from economic hardship to multi-million-dollar treasure remains one of the greatest tales in all of numismatics. And as we dive even deeper into the mystique surrounding the 1877 1-cent USA coin, the story expands beyond mere numbers and into the realm of legend, because collectors, historians, and investors alike agree that this coin is not just rare, it is the epitome of 19th century American minting challenges, surviving through decades of circulation, neglect, misplacement, natural wear, environmental damage, and even human error, which together make each remaining specimen a miracle. And the more you study the coin, the more you realize that its value is not simply monetary but symbolic, representing resilience, history, craftsmanship, and the untold stories of ordinary Americans who carried these pennies in pockets, purses, and coin pouches during a turbulent era of the nation's growth, and the coin itself tells a story in every detail, from the sharpness or fading of Liberty's headband, to the clarity of the date, to the intricate design of the Indian head feathers, each line, ridge, and contour serving as a frozen moment in time, a tiny witness to history. And what makes this coin even more extraordinary is the possibility that some surviving 1877 cents contain subtle mint errors that escape the primitive quality control systems of the era, such as slight doubling on the date, faint die cracks running across the obverse, minor misalignment of the reverse, thin or thick planchet areas caused by inconsistent striking pressure, and even rare instances of clipped planchets, all of which can push the value into the multi-million-dollar range, because when these errors appear on an already scarce 1877 coin, the result is nearly mythical, combining historical significance with visual intrigue and extreme scarcity. And every collector knows that rarity alone is not enough. The coin must survive in collectible condition, avoiding excessive wear, corrosion, scratches, bending, or cleaning damage, and for a coin minted in 1877, surviving intact for more than 140 years without suffering major flaws is nothing short of miraculous, making each high-grade example an object of intense desire, fierce competition, and astronomical value, and the market responds accordingly, with auctions, private sales, and collector exchanges fueling the legend, where single coins have been known to command tens of millions of dollars, because the combination of historical context, mintage scarcity, condition, and possible errors elevates the 1877 Indian head cent into a category beyond ordinary collecting, and its story continues to inspire coin hunters to search old coin albums, inherited collections, estate sales, dusty drawers, antique shops, and even long-forgotten bank rolls for the possibility of discovering the next extraordinary specimen, and the suspense, thrill, and emotional payoff of finding such a coin is part of the reason why the legend endures, drawing new generations into the world of numismatics, encouraging them to learn, explore, and dream about what may still be hidden, and the 1877 penny remains a powerful reminder that history, chance, and rarity can converge in a small, unassuming object, transforming a single coin into a treasure that embodies not just money but the stories, struggles, and triumphs of an entire era, capturing the imagination of collectors, historians, investors, and enthusiasts alike, and reinforcing the truth that in the world of rare coins some objects are far more than currency. They are keys to the past, carriers of legend, and icons of value that continue to awe, inspire,